Welcome back to another episode of Boom or Bust, a Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host, Terry, and today I'm talking about the NFL mock draft game, and I have a whole bunch of disclaimers to throw out there before we get started. All right, number one, this is an NFL mock draft game that I do on a website that I'm a part of. It is an annual game. Everybody represents a team or more than one team. And we kind of just go through a mock draft. Now, I'm representing the Chicago Bears, and I did this last year. But just to let you know, we started pretty early on because it's a long process because we do 7 rounds. And so what we typically do is we're supposed to ignore any moves that are made after the game starts. So whenever the first pick is made, we ignore any free agency or trades that are made after that. We don't always stick to that, but that's typically what we do. For the Bears, we don't pick to the 3rd round. So, of course, I did not really follow that rule at all. But just to let you know, that is one of our rules. I was just the Bears this year. Typically, I'm more than one team, but I was just the Bears. So, yeah, it's a mock draft game. We can do trades. We can do any trades, really. Most people don't trade a lot, but we can trade players. We can trade players that we already drafted. Usually it's just picks for picks. We don't do complimentary picks or compensatory picks, excuse me. A lot of people don't trade players, but you can do all that. Usually we don't though. And I would say this year has been pretty slow. We're pretty slow every year. It's like always a fight to the finish, but this year's been pretty slow. Yeah, it's just been, that's our website. Our forum, we've been getting a little worse for the wear, but either way, I just want to let you know we didn't get through the 7th round yet. And so, looking at the pace that we were going, I decided, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and post my review. Last year, I kind of showed you pick by pick, but this year I'm going to just do it all in one. And I'm going to talk about the 7th round of the picks that I'm aiming for. These aren't the guys that I got in the mock draft game because we haven't got there yet. But it doesn't really matter. It's a mock draft. So I'm going to just tell you who I was aiming for. And so those would be my 7th round picks. So I think that's everything. So with that being said, let's get into it. So, we stayed pretty pat this year. We didn't trade up or anything. Mostly I didn't have a whole bunch of time to dig into it. But either way, our first pick is in the 3rd round. I wasn't trying to go crazy and try to get into the 1st round or anything like that. So with that being said, I think our strategy was to get bodies in here that were either going to be very conducive to contributing right away, or get bodies in here that we thought had extreme upside. So that's kind of the way I went at it. For our 3rd round pick, we stayed put and we took Isaiah Prince out of Ohio State, right tackle. Now Isaiah Prince weighed in at the combine, I believe 6'6", 305, 35-inch arms. So this is a very prototypical tackle build when you're talking about a guy that has extremely long limbs, a big wide base and everything, even at 305, which I think he slimmed down for the combine, but he's a bigger body dude. So he's got all the measurables that you want as far as his size. But for me, Isaiah Prince, is probably the 3rd best tackle, for 3rd or 4th. For all the hype around Jawan Taylor, I don't think he's a top 10 pick. Very good, but definitely a right tackle and definitely not a top 10 pick. For Dillard, definitely not a 1st round pick. For me, if anything, he's a late 1st round pick. But then you got, Greg Little, not so much. I like, Kajuste from, West Virginia. But I would say firmly in that conversation is Isaiah Prince. The thing that I saw is that he went against Big Ten competition. He went against Big Ten competition and he used his length and his strength to his advantage. Now, he's not a top 10 pick. Of course, I got him in the third round. He's not polished, but I do think he has all the tools that you look for when you're looking at a tackle. And so he doesn't have an issue with attitude as far as his effort. He doesn't have an issue as far as movement skills. This is a guy that I believe was a former basketball player in high school, I believe. I'm not sure. Don't quote me. But you can see in his feet that he doesn't have a problem putting energy into trying to give effort into his blocking. And so while he might not be the fastest, I do think he uses his length to his advantage. And so you see him go up against some of the top pass rushers in this upcoming draft. And then, of course, going against Nick Bosa in practice and all that, you see a guy that has a very solid foundation. And I have all the faith in the world in our offensive line coach and Harry Heastan. I think that you bring him in and you allow him to mold his skills into the right way. This is a guy that could be a right tackle starter for 10 years. It's not a guy like Orlando Brown, I believe, from Oklahoma. It's not a guy like Zach Banner from USC, where they're just so overly big that you're like, okay, you have to play right tackle. And I pray to God that you are able to move and not break your legs or anything. I don't think it's that situation. I think it's a guy that has great size, but also still has the same ability that most offensive linemen need to have. And so if you're putting him up against Orlando Brown from Oklahoma last year, he doesn't have the same power, but I think he has above average more athleticism than Orlando Brown. And so that is a pick to, push Bobby Massey eventually, hopefully get rid of him. He makes money. I mean, and he wasn't the, scapegoat that he was before, this year. I would say that he didn't have those same type of issues as he did in the past. But I still say that's one of our weaker parts of our offensive line. And I do think that when you're looking at our offense versus our defense needs a little help. And I think the offensive line is where you start. And so I'm going for right tackle Isaiah Prince. Put him in there as the second guy and continue to push Massey. Maybe Massey gets a little better. If not, then Isaiah Prince can get an early look either in the second half of his rookie year or sophomore year. And I think we got a guy that we can coach up to be a 10-year starter. All right, so from there, we go to the fourth round, and this is where I got Austin Bryant out of Clemson, who played defensive end. They had an even front in Clemson, but a guy that had a little bit of experience dropping out in the coverage and standing up and rushing. I think we need a person opposite Khalil Mack. I think that, and I've been saying this for a while, Leonard Floyd has never really grown into what we expected of him with his intangibles, and that he's in a perfect place where we could trade and try to get some value for him because he's not broken. He is not terrible athletically. I think he has a lot of great tools that he never put together, and it showed. And then a lot of people, I've talked about this back and forth. Khalil Mack does a lot of damage. When Khalil Mack is not doing damage, then we're exposed for our lack of pass rush. And as much as people point to the numbers, I do think our secondary helped us a whole lot with coverage sacks that people aren't giving them credit for. And so with that being said, I think that we take Austin Bryant. I already have a lot of confidence in Isaiah Irvin and then Kylie Fitz as well, who I think both should have got a lot more playing time than they did, especially over Aaron Lynch, who is just absolutely terrible. And so I think between Fitz, Irvin, and you throw in Austin Bryant, who's a little bit of a spark plug, I think you give a legitimate competition opposite Khalil Mack. And even if you don't have a true one starter, you got a rotation where Khalil Mack, as long as he's healthy, is always playing, and then you got guys on the other side. And so Austin Bryant has a tenacious attitude where he's more rugged. He's not like a finesse guy. He's definitely more of a power rusher, but he has the tenacity to want to get to the quarterback that you need in a pass rusher. And then you couple that with his ability and his experience in coverage. So Khalil Mack doesn't have to drop in coverage. I think you get a guy that's a dog. He's a little bit of an eater. I mean, you look at Clemson's defensive line, all 4 starters are probably going to be top 3 round picks. Or in this case, 4 round picks. But between Farrell, between, Wilkins, between, I forgot the other nose tackles' names. I always get them mixed up. It's Christian Wilkins and it's Dexter Lawrence. You got all those are top 3 round picks. Then you got Austin Bryant, who if he fell to the 4th round to the Bears would be an absolute steal. I think these guys are all top 3 talents. You get him in the fold and then you get rid of the fat. I mean, get rid of, what is it? Aaron Lynch before the season starts. Get rid of Leonard Floyd before the season starts and get some value for him. And then you're talking about Fitz, Isaiah Irvin, and Austin Bryant, who can really, between the 3, even if you rotate them, they have such tenacity that would just by itself be an upgrade across from Khalil Mack. So that's why I went with the 4th round pick. All right, so for our 5th round pick, a lot of fan favorites. He fell to us. And I'll kind of go back because I didn't really talk about the other people I was considering. So when we were in the 3rd round, I was actually considering another Clemson player, Mullen, the cornerback from Clemson. I think that even though he has good size, his build and his skills are shaped up for a nickel corner. And we know we didn't bring Bryce Callahan back. We know we're bringing in Buster Screen, who is like, okay. But I think that with the size of Mullen, we would have been able to play and cross-train him at both outside and nickel corner and kind of make him a versatile weapon. He's long. He's also very tenacious and he's very feisty on the outside as far as pressing people. And he's very strong at jumping routes. And I think that's just cover 2 written all over him. That was a guy I was looking for. I think he was taken. I thought he might have been open, but he was taken in the 3rd round. But I would tell you between the 3rd and 4th round, especially the 4th round, I was really considering Bryce Love from Stanford, running back. I thought he was absolutely a great fit between Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen. I thought that, Jordan Howard could give you the pound up the middle, the physicality, the toughness, and Tariq Cohen, of course, gives you the juice and the bounce. I think Bryce Love gives you the breakaway speed and the bounce, but he also gives you the toughness in the middle, even though he's not that big. So I was really fighting against getting Bryce Love, but I just thought there were so many running backs. And one particular running back I was hoping fell to me in the 5th round. And so I took a chance on Austin Bryant. And lo and behold, the running back did fall to me. 5th round, I got Dexter Williams out of Notre Dame, who in the actual draft, I think might be a little more highly valued than the mock draft game because it's just a bunch of us fans. Some people not as big as fans as others. It's a football forum, but we also talk other sports, so everybody's not strong in football. And so Dexter Williams fell to me in the 5th round out of Notre Dame. I just think that his slash ability is something we need, especially when you're talking about a mix between Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen. The guy can gallop. He ran a 4.57, so that turned people off a little bit. So he might drop a little bit in the draft. But you look at the tape and you're talking about a 40 yards. So you're talking about 40 yards. You get past the 50, that's midfield. 40 yards is what I call the green zone. Once you get to that side, you're on the opponent's side, of course, and you're not in the red zone yet, but you're heading that way. And so some guys are a 90-yard burner, but some guys are a 40-yard burner. And so I think you look at Dexter Williams, even though he got really good gaps with the Notre Dame offensive line, you look at how he exploited and used those gaps. You look at how he has soft hands in the passing game. He has nice galloping ability. I think Dexter Williams fits perfectly. If it's me, I'm putting Dexter Williams out there. 5th round pick. I don't care. He's my starter. And then I'm using Tariq Cohen the same exact way I used him last year. I might bring them both in. I'll bring Tariq in at the slot, motion them. I might jet sweep them. I might screen with them. I might do a fake pass play. Whatever you got to do. But I think Dexter Williams has the size and strength and also the playmaking ability to be on the field to complement Tariq Cohen. So I'm glad I waited for a running back. Again, I wanted Bryce Love, who is smaller, but I just think he has such big time ability. But we got Dexter Williams, and I really think he would fit well with what Matt Nagy wants to do. So we got our replacement for Jordan Howard. All right. So after Dexter Williams, then comes the more questionable things because it's the 7th round. We didn't have a 6th round pick. And I was thinking about trading up, but that was honestly just because of the way the draft was going. It wasn't about like I got a player I really want. It was like the draft is kind of going slow, so I want to trade up and get my pick done so I can do this episode. However, it didn't work out that way. So I'm going to just tell you who I was targeting. Number 1, I was targeting Derek Thomas, cornerback out of Baylor. I think, number 1, losing Bryce Callahan's an issue. I think bringing in Clinton Dix, who's more of a free safety, to play strong safety is an issue because we're not going to get out of him what we got out of Amos. And so I was really like, yo, could we get and I think Prince Mukamara, as good as he's been, is an issue as he's getting older. So I think, okay, well, let's bring in a corner who has the ability to maybe flex around. I'm not saying we're going to flex him around, but he has the ability. So the same thing with like Mullen out of Clemson. I was like, let me get a guy that I think could be of use in different places. Of course, it's the 7th round, so it's a bunch of flyers. It's not people that are brand names, as you will. But I got this guy, Derek Thomas, out of Baylor. Measured in at 6'3", 190 pounds. Not too bad. 33, almost 34-inch arms, which is stupid long for a corner. 10-inch hands, which are huge hands. 4'4", 40. Almost a 40-inch vertical. Like, you got a height, weight, speed guy, as we call him. This is a guy at 6'3", 190 pounds, long arms, big hands, fast 40, big vertical. This is what you call a combine special. So I would say all the talk about him prior to the combine was not great. And that's why we're in the 7th round. You're talking about a guy that needed another year to improve. You're talking about a guy that was in the Big 12, which is notorious for terrible defense. But he came out anyway, and he put up a big show at the combine to make people reconsider him. And so I look at Derek Thomas, and I think, look, we got a strong secondary group. I don't think Prince is going to fall off a cliff, but I do think he's going to regress. And so if he can be solid this year, Kyle Fuller can be what he's been. You get this corner inside of a locker room that is really veteran and very much can teach him the ways. And then you bring in Chuck Pagano, who's our new defensive coordinator. He's a guy that is a secondary guru, so you can work with him as well. And so with all these athletic abilities, I think that you can really get him out into the nickel or the outside, depending what you need. Now with Prince and Kyle Fuller, early on, he's going to be a nickel guy. Now Buster Screen is in the spotlight, and I think it's beautiful because if Buster Screen falls on his face and doesn't perform the way we thought he would perform, then we got an early opening for Derek to come in and really try to show that he can do what we need our corners to do. And then eventually, if Prince gets towards the end of his contract, he's not great, we can then move Derek in. And it's pretty much similar, and I can't remember the corner's name. I want to say it was Lane or something with the Seahawks. Seahawks do this a lot. They get these 6-foot+ corners who are big and fast, not great prospects, but then they train them up to eventually go out and play their system. I think we could do the similar thing with Derek here and train him up, not in the first year to take over, but maybe in his second or third year, if Prince holds up, we can get this guy to be a big contributing factor for us, because with that amount of speed, that amount of length, you can really press people, you can really run with them, and I think he could do a number of things. Even if he doesn't excel at corner, you're talking about 6'3", 190, put some poundage on him, 6'3", 200. He could play a safety for us. And so maybe you have an emergency in case Clinton Dix doesn't really work out or if he gets hurt. I think it's just a good piece to have, a height, weight, speed prospect that's a piece of clay that we can mold into a player. Lastly, we have Alex Bars out of Notre Dame as well. 6'6", 312 at the combine. I would say average hand size, average arm length, didn't get to work out. But Alex Barr is a guy that's coming off an ACL injury or knee injury. I believe it's ACL though. And so he didn't get to show as much as he wanted this year, but he was a Notre Dame starter. He's a guy that has big build, but people think he might be a guard due to limited athleticism, which is fine because all things equal, I would love one of the top interior linemen so that we can figure out the whole Kyle Long versus Whitehair versus James Daniels thing. I personally think Kyle Long's long in the tooth and he's on his way out, but we want to respect him. I think Cody Whitehair should not be a center, and I think James Daniels should be a center. So I would love one of those better interior linemen, but by the third round, they're all gone. So for me, we get the right tackle solidified. Bobby Massey's the next problem after our interior. But in the 7th round pick, you get a guy that Harry Heastan, our offensive line coach, has been around, recruited, taught. You can rehabilitate him. He has no pressure to start right now, but you rehabilitate him, you get him healthy, and then Harry Heastan understands and can unlock his full potential. Because at a 6'6" guard, at interior, we can really make a role grader out of him. And so I think about this idea where Bars is the right guard, our center is James Daniels, and our left guard is Cody Whitehair, and we're rolling. And I love Kyle Long. Don't get me wrong. I love Kyle Long. Again, we need to respect him. He's a Bears. I wouldn't say a legend, but he's a Bears definitely name right now. But we just don't know with his injuries. And so Alex Barr, 7th round value pick. Right now, I think a lot of people are looking at him as a priority free agent. We pick him up in the 7th round, take him off people's boards. And I think Harry Heastan could really unlock the most out of his former player. And then we could figure out a place for him in the interior. So, all right. So for me, overall, that's what we're looking at. We're talking about a right tackle for Isaiah Prince, who is a potential 10-year starter, I believe. You're talking about Austin Bryant, who I think can shed a little bit of weight and definitely learn some technique and become a tenacious pass rusher outside of Khalil Mack and gives us room to move Leonard Floyd. You're talking about Dexter Williams as a replacement to Jordan Howard, who himself was a late round pick and could really take the load and then add to what Tariq Cohen can do. Then you're talking about jumping to the 7th round with some flyers, getting Derek Thomas out of Baylor, who's a very long and fast corner, figuring out if he's an outside nickel or safety. And then Alex Bars, who I think Harry Heaston could work into a very serviceable inside lineman. So there we go. All right, so go to comment section. I've been talking a long time. Go to comment section. Let me know what you think about these picks. What picks would you go with? What guys are you looking at? Are you excited for the draft since we don't have a pick in the first 2 rounds? What are you thinking about? Do you think I'm too conservative and Ryan Pace is going to trade up? Go to the comment section, get the comments started and the conversation started. Share it around, thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, above all, we got to remember this, Bears fans, during the offseason. Stay up and bear down.